Big thanks go out to Taiwa for supporting today's video via Patreon. Arabella, Abandoned Doll, versus Kiora, Obeka, and Kothophed. Two-lander with no ramps starts us off, so I think we'll go for a mulligan here. Alright, and into a three-lander. The Renaissance will be useful with our commander as well. So we'll go for the Reconnaissance on turn 1, and maybe our commander on turn 2, I'm not sure. See what we draw into before we decide. A Moon Silver Key for Kothophed, Demir's Signet, and okay, draw into Burnished Heart. So we'll try and limp out a Burnished Heart in that case. Let's go for the Surveil land, and an Impercal is on top. That's going to be very good with our commander, so we'll keep that on top. Without drawing into any decent ramp, we're not going quite as fast as I would like. Moon Silver Key is sacrificed and searches up a mana rock, which allows them to tutor up and play a Sol Ring. Then Obeka is the first commander to hit play. And the Thespian Stage, the Simic player doesn't have any green mana at the moment, so Thespian Stage becomes a copy of our command tower. And at the end of the turn we'll path the Obeka. It's quite aggressive, but I don't want to be messing around with that while they've got 7 cards in hand next turn. So before getting our commander down, I think it makes sense to draw into and play the Impercal. And we'll try and get that online as soon as we can. The black player throws down even more ramp in Thran Dynamo, trying to get into his commander as soon as possible. Followed by a Trespasser's Curse, which will curse us, so every time we have a creature enter, we'll get drained for 1. And yeah, obviously we want to get down lots of creatures in this deck, with it being Boros Weenies, so particularly bad aura for us. We've got a generous gift at least. Obeka throws down a Vile Requiem. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a verse counter on it. Then for 2 and sack, destroy X non-black creatures, where X is the number of Vile counters on it. Threw down a Dragon Master Outcast as well. Don't have enough lands to make that relevant though. After a basic and getting down a command tower of his own, he's able to make a bunch of green now, so a Mana Dork followed by Selvala, Heart of the Wilds. And instead of going for the Burnished Heart here, I just want to get the tokens going so that we can try and make our commander relevant. So we'll play Delny, and that will double the triggers on an Impercal. Take our first drain from the Trespasser's Curse. And let's turn into the left in order to attempt to try and get rid of that aura. So like I said, the legend triggers twice, getting us a couple of gnome tokens. But each of the gnomes that comes in drains us for 1 as well. Oh well, the mono black player doing very well on mana this game, has a Cabal Coffers in play also. So decides to play his commander, Kothophed, followed by a Playcrafter, which is an edict effect that we get to dodge at least. Just sacrifice a gnome into that. That does mean 3 creatures die though, so Kothophed loses our opponent 3 life and he draws 3 cards. Obeka back into play during his main phase. And Kiora making it 3 commanders in a row. Alright, just drew into Wall of Omens with the Delny still in place, so that too will trigger twice. Alright, so I'll go through to combat. Before I decide what I'm doing, we'll just take in the Delny because it can't be blocked. And we don't have to attack him with an Impercal in order to trigger it, so the gnomes enter play as well. Which continues to trigger the curse, so our life is going to deplete more and more the further the game goes on. But managed to get the black player down to 33. Bearing in mind that he is gaining life as well. So we'll play a Wall of Omens, try and get into a land here. We've got a couple of chances to. Miss with a Perforos and an Austere Command, okay. So not managing to make a land this turn. I don't trust that there won't be a board wipe, so I'm not going to play the commander. And there we go, Yahenni's Expertise. All creatures -3/-3, and they can get a free spell as well. So a lot of creatures die, putting Kothophed triggers on the stack for card draw and a loss of life. And the free spell is a Sculpting Steel coming in as a copy of an artifact. Had it enter as a copy of the Thran Dynamo, so taps that for mana straight away into a Scampering Surveyor. And this is like a fixed Solemn Simulacrum, so I quite like that. I don't think I've seen this one before, I need to include that in more decks I think. Obeka plays a Twilight Prophet, and I think he will have the City's Blessing for that, so he's soon to start draining us. That does trigger during the upkeep. Copy Enchantment from the Grixis player comes down as a copy of an enchantment, as you would expect. So makes another Vile Requiem in order to try and get some one-sided board wipes going. Obeka swings in towards Tatyova with Menace. so can't be blocked. And that means there's some additional upkeeps to be had here. So it's a couple of Vile Requiem triggers, one for each permanent. And the Twilight Prophet likely going to drain us. The first time shows us a combat research, so pretty lucky there. And then the second one just shows us a Tricycle land. Attack Yorva on turn 6, still fixing his mana and his colours. Followed by a quest for Ula's Temple. That's a pretty tall order to get the counters on this one, if I remember rightly. Alright, and a very aggressive Nature's Claim onto the Thran Dynamo, so yeah, the mono black player has plenty of mana, but does have slightly less now at least. Alright, still no land for us, a Rabble Rousing this time, so we're not having the best of luck here. I think I'm just gonna encourage another board wipe and go for the Perforos. Just need to try and outrace this Curse player. So swing an Impercarl into the left. And again we'll send all the gnome tokens in there as well. Each one of those entering will drain us for 1, but each one of them entering will also trigger the shock on Perforos. So dealing a hefty chunk of damage to our opponent before combat's even been dealt with here. Kothophed blocks the Impercarl as we were expecting. But we've got the Reconnaissance, so we can remove that from combat so that it doesn't die. Do the same with the gnome that was blocked as well. And we still get 3 points of damage through. So we're doing a decent chunk of damage, but the mono black player with his life gain is managing to keep himself afloat here. And speaking of life gain, there is a Whip of Erebos. I think that's to this day the only means of black giving itself lifelink on everything. On a black permanent anyway. Well, we did encourage a Wrath, it just wasn't the type of Wrath we wanted. A Toxic Deluge is going to wipe out all the 1 toughness creatures. So again, losing 4 life and drawing 4 cards thanks to the gnomes going down. And then with the Whip decides to reanimate the Plague Crafter. So again, there'll be an Edict effect. And Obeka was holding up a not dead after all, so he's likely going to sacrifice his commander in order to keep the Twilight Prophet in play. And creatures dying once again triggers the Kothophed for even more card draw. Got himself down to 15 though, but attacks haven't been declared yet, and there is a Batter Skull. So +4/+4 vigilance and lifelink. Can't equip it to his commander yet, so he will have to tap it down during attacks. Kothophed swings at us, and the artifact creature goes to the right. And that Vile Requiem from Obeka is becoming more and more relevant, and not against the player that we want it to be. It does have to be non-black creatures that it takes out. Anyway, this time seeing a Commander Sphere revealed to the Twilight Prophet, so lightning bolting all of us. And the second aura goes onto Obeka in the combat research that we saw previously. Of course, a Wicked Roll token is on there from the previous turn as well. Then we see a Recantation. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a verse counter on it. Then for blue and sacrifice, return X permanents to their owner's hands, where X is the verse counters. So Obeka, using its menace to go past the Germ token, takes him back down to 15 and is going to get a few more upkeeps here. So thus far it is Vile Requiem counters, Recantation gets its first counter, and then the Twilight Prophet is going to reveal something new. We see a Court of Lochthwain this time, so we each take a hit for 4. Been controlled nicely this game, and we haven't really been able to do much of anything. And then with the second round of triggers, Twilight Prophet reveals to us a Court of Cunning, so a means of giving himself the Monarch. Alright, but then with the third round of triggers we see a Flare of Malice. Each opponent sacks a creature or planeswalker with the greatest mana value. Sacrificed his commander in order to play that for free. So yeah, strange timing on that after the Twilight Prophet has done so much damage already, but forcing us to sacrifice an Impercarl, the Twilight Prophet goes down as well. But the Prophet will still resolve here, so now revealing a Wildfire Devils. I think he revealed a 4 mana drop on every single trigger there. Anyway, a bunch of counters on all of his permanents, and immediately sacrificing the Recantation. So he's bouncing the black player's Thran Dynamo, Batter Skull and Whip. Oh, and it looks as though our God is coming back to hand as well. The Simic player, we're assuming, has gone for a Sea Monsters build, so Nadir Kraken comes into play. And then passes straight over to us, and by turn 7 we managed to get into our 5th land. But seeing as how there's been a board wipe and a little bit of a slowdown in the game, it might be time to finally go for playing this Burnished Heart. And then also, hopefully we've seen the last of the board wipes. Although with the black player having 15 cards in hand, maybe not. Get down Arabella. Don't have a means of haste, annoyingly, so we'll have to just hope that it survives a turn cycle. Well, the mono black player is down to 16 and he's still doing mono black things. Rise of the Dark Realms is going to reanimate every creature. So a bunch of Selvala triggers, and he does get 2 Wall of Omen triggers thanks to our Delny. Of course he has reanimated our creatures as well. So now 6 lands held up and 15 cards in hand. We see a Bubbling Muck, which will double up his swamps. And then he gets himself into Anachroma's Memorial, which is a means of haste and flying and vigilance. And even has some left over for lifelink from the Whip of Erebos. And in response, strangely enough, the Simic player has gone for rapid hybridization onto the Obeka. Not sure he's understanding who the threat is here, although Obeka can do some crazy stuff. So yeah, it looks as though everything is swinging in towards Obeka. Triggers our Animpakal twice before it gets its plus counter on, thanks to Delny, so we'll get a couple of gnome tokens. Or 3 gnome tokens, actually. And not taking as big a hit as you might have thought, only goes down to 31. But the Val Requiem is still relevant. So after revealing it previously, now plays the Wildfire Devils. Not sure which instant or sorcery he's after. But with that sacrifices the Rise of the Dark Realms, which will do absolutely nothing here, straight after it's just been cast. Manages to play the Court of Lochthwain as well though. So introduces the Monarchy to the game. Quest for Ula's Temple, still with no counters on it. Does make a tentacle token with the Nadir Kraken though, thanks to drawing a card during his draw step. Alright, and then casts a needed board wipe. Seen plenty of those this game, but it's really not what we need to see in Boros Weenies. So pretty much everything gets sent back apart from the Kraken. Throws back down a Mana Dork as well. And the Kraken swings in down the middle, so it looks as though he's worried about Obeka more than the mono black player. Although he might just be trying to take the Monarchy. Alright, we're finally drawing into the lands, so there's a Plains for us. Only 6 mana by turn 8 is really not good. I think we need to go for reset button number 5. Play yet another board wipe. And we'll go Austere Command onto Artifacts and Enchantments here, I think, because Artifacts is really going to hurt the black player. Although maybe not that much, because he still has that Cabal Coffers. But we don't like Obeka's enchantments being able to take out our creatures either. So that lands successfully. We take a turn off in order to try and buy ourselves some time. We needed rid of the curse anyway, because we're all the way down to 3 life now. And in order to just survive as long as possible, I think we're going to have to show our opponents that we're not going to go off with Perforos out of nowhere. So let's discard that as well, and try to buy ourselves some time. The Scampering Surveyor out again for more land ramp. And our opponent able to continue to make use of the Cabal Coffers to get his commander into play once more. Followed by a Swiftfoot Boots, can't afford to equip it at the moment though. Obeka coming into play again as well, as does the Dragon Master Outcast, which will be relevant from now on because he does have enough lands for it this time. Another Tentacle token by the Kraken, followed by an excellent enchantment for the Simic player, a Greater Good. Doesn't have any of his massive creatures down yet though. Still draws at the end of the turn because he is still the Monarch after our board wipe, and yeah, makes another Tentacle token. Still has 2 mana held up. I'll assume it's not our stuff that's potentially getting countered though. A Selfless Spirit, we may well have seen the last of the board wipes finally, but we'll at least have a flyer in play. So I think we just get down a bunch of 2-drops here. Let's play Wall of Omens first to see if we change our mind with what we draw into. Alright, decent number of spot removal cards now, a Chaos Warp as well. Play the Selfless Spirit, and attempt to get something going with our commander finally. Once again, we don't have haste, so just need to make it an entire turn cycle with that thing intact. Transmogrifying Wand could well come towards us, but maybe it'll go towards Obeka. And that's exactly who they target, so going to convert that into a 2/4 Ox. which kills it, and Kothophed draws once again, managed to get his life total back up from the previous much lower life total, now at 21 points. Swiftfoot Boots now able to be equipped onto the commander, and in response the Nadir Kraken is sacrificed to the greater good, so 4 cards in hand at the moment, not sure how many he's going to draw. I don't know what the power of that thing was, but we'll have to discard 3 regardless. Goes up to 9 cards in hand to that, and discards a Charix along with a couple of lands. So we'll see if he managed to get into any spot removal there. He did. A Pongify goes on to the Kothophed, and that does successfully land. The black player has 12 cards in hand, so could have had a means of dodging that. And we know what the plan was for the demon player. A Lashwraith gives +1/+1 for each swamp you control. And we saw the Batterskull previously for lifelink and vigilance. So throws Swiftfoot Boots onto the Germ token and pays non-Phyrexian mana for the Lashwraith. So now this thing is a haste hexproof lifelink vigilant 13/13 and swings in at Obeka, who decides to block with the Ox token. I dare say it's really the life that the black player wanted here. So jumps back up to 32. Still has his Dragon Master Outcast in play though, so that is going to make the first Dragon token at the beginning of the upkeep. And then playing the Wildfire Devils again. Manages to get himself a Bubbling Muck from the mono black player. He does have 3 swamps in play, so that might actually be relevant. Taps his black sources for 7 mana. And replays the Twilight Prophet. And a Demonic Embrace onto the Wildfire Devils, giving +3/+1 and flying. And completely tapping out, as we like to see a Grixis player do, Dreadhorde Invasion before the end of his turn as well. Kiora getting out a Sol Ring. And then casts a Barlagad Recovery. No prizes for guessing what that's going after. Returns from graveyard to his hand. A Whelming Wave. So yeah, not having the best of luck here. If you're in a creature-based deck and you see about 20 board wipes in a game, then I think we can be forgiven for not doing too well. Don't even have the mana to rebuild very quickly. There's still the Swiftfoot Boots from the mono black player to worry about. Plays out a Gwenna as well for some more mana acceleration. Well, we keep top decking into lands, so we're progressing our mana at least. I think we're going to need the Selfless Spirit against the mono black player because he has haste. And we want a flying blocker just in case, so we'll get that down. Play Arabella back out as well, once again, asking for a full turn cycle. And then I think it's going to be sensible to hold up the 3 mana for some spot removal just in case we need it. There's the Scampering Surveyor again. That's done a hell of a lot of work for the black player. Nice land-based ramp for the Cabal Coffers to see. Then Kothophed into play once again. Swiftfoot Boots onto it. I think it's going to be rinse and repeat pretty much. 5 mana to equip a Batterskull. And 4 life to equip a Lashwraith, which is very much worth the investment, I think. Because he's going to see a hefty return here. So we could have gone for spot removal in response to the Swiftfoot Boots, but we've got a chump blocker now, so if it goes in at someone else, then that's good. It's actually a 21 point commander here, so yeah, he's going to finish off Obeka quite swiftly. So down to 7 life, and at 21 points of commander damage goes Obeka. It is about time players started going down here. This mono black player has been very, very resilient. A Monstrous Vortex, haven't seen enough of that one since it was printed. Creatures with power 5 or greater discover X, where X is the CMC. Oh, and there's a good one. Hullbreaker Horror is a good one to wriggle us out of this. It's a big creature, so it will cause Discover from the Monstrous Vortex. Gwenna will trigger as well. And discovers a Reservoir Kraken, which will trigger the Gwenna and the Monstrous Vortex again. So this time discovering a Cultivate. Simic player starting to do crazy Simic things. And with each trigger on the Gwenna, he is having it untap and then tapping it down for mana in order to float as much as possible. And is able to cast something into the Hullbreaker Horror. That is a Shipbreaker Kraken. So once again, a big creature is going to get a Discover trigger into another one. There's some good luck occurring here. Storm Surge Kraken. And these spells being cast now see the Hullbreaker in place, so he's able to bounce things. He's so far looking at the Swiftfoot Boots and the Batterskull. And then the Kraken discovers a Nature's Law. which does count as something being cast, so bounces the Lashwraith. Just biding my time, trying to look for a place in which we can maybe use the generous gift to blow up that Cabal Coffers finally. Okay, now that the Simic player has confirmed to us that he is looking to deal with the mono black player, I think we're safe to just go for the generous gift now and go for the Cabal Coffers. I'd rather he bounces an elephant token before it can start swinging in, so we'll give him the chance. Alright, sacrifices one of his sea monsters, 3 cards in hand. He's got 2 mana floating from the Gwenna, and he's about to draw some more to the greater good. Looks as though he sacrificed the Reservoir Kraken, so managed to cast himself a Findhorn Elves, which is relevant, so Hullbreaker Horror can bounce the Kothophed. And he's still going. That is Selvala back into play, so is able to bounce that elephant token that we put in previously, so no downside to the generous gift whatsoever, which was always part of the plan. Okay, well, it's highly unlikely that we're going to be able to do anything, but let's see here. Draw into a Talisman, so we'll just play that straight away. And then we'll get Delny down to start attempting to trigger our commander much sooner. Throw out Wall of Blossoms to try and draw into something relevant as well. Alright, draw a couple of cards. We're finally getting into the lands and the ramp. Drawing into everything in the wrong order, unfortunately. And I should maybe swing in here, because our commander can't be blocked. I don't want the Simic player to turn on us is the problem. I want the black player and the Simic player to kind of go at it, and then hopefully we can sweep up the mess at the end. Especially with Cabal Coffers gone down. I don't know how much the Kothophed costs, but maybe they won't be able to afford to recast it. Oh no, it's been bounced back to the hand, so Kothophed does come back straight away, and we do have Swiftfoot Boots to be concerned with. So down comes the boots, equip the boots, still have a flyer to chump block with. They decide on the Lashwraith, 48 life. Equip the Lashwraith to Kothophed, so should be able to deal with the Kraken player. And they do swing in to the right. Alright, so we've been teetering at 3 life for a number of turns here and managed to survive. So we'll see if our gamble pays off here. I mean, I don't see that we have much of a choice really. And we've only got a finite amount of time against the mono black player. There's a Grand Abolisher, doesn't really do anything for us here. I think we just need to try and gain as much life as possible really, although we're facing down commander damage from the Kothophed. Play a Nimpercarl. And we'll play Adeline as well. Just try and get as many creatures into play as possible so that we can try and plummet the life total down as far as possible. Swing in with Arabella, and then make sure to put the 2 triggers, thanks to Delny, on the stack first, because we want her to see the new creatures that come in. So again, an Nimpercarl triggers twice before it gets its plus counters, and Adeline only sees 1 opponent now, unfortunately. But got a few more creatures into play, so it's turn 12 and we're only seeing the first trigger of Arabella now. But get our opponent from 44 down to 28 there, so yeah, we go back up to 19. We're showing off a little bit of what we should have been doing all along with this commander. Just haven't had the best of luck with all this control and board wipes and lack of mana. Take the Monarch at the end of the turn as well, which means we draw a card, probably just continuing to hold up the spot removal. Okay, that is a do or die. Separate all creatures target player controls into 2 piles, destroy 1 of that player's choice. Now that is destroy, so we can dodge this with the Selfless Spirit, but they can blow up Selfless Spirit with the Transmogrifying Wand anyway, so I think our opponent just has us either way here, unfortunately. We'll sacrifice the Selfless Spirit so that we don't have to lose either pile, because our stuff will be indestructible and therefore immune to destruction. Yeah, so our opponent doesn't bother to divide the piles up really. We'll just choose any pile. None of them will be destroyed, like I said. And our opponent always had Blackblade Reforged anyway for the commander. Yeah, I was hoping that we'd be able to survive another turn there and not go down to commander damage. Like I said, they were always going to be able to get the flyer out of the way thanks to the wand. So we're just going to have to go for Chaos Warp onto the Lashwraith here. Either that or the Blackblade Reforged, I don't think it really matters. But our opponent still has plenty of damage on us thanks to the remaining equipment. We were relying on the flyer staying in play for another turn there. But not bad, considering that we were teetering at 3 life for so long and we were controlled so very well during that entire game. I think we lasted quite well and we actually started to make a comeback right towards the end there. Hopefully you all enjoy this Arabella gameplay, and I'm hoping that you do all want to see more gameplay from this commander, because I do enjoy it and wouldn't mind making another video of it in which we get to see more convincing plays from her, but you'll have to let me know in the comments section as always. Massive thank you to the patrons for their continued support of the channel as well. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.